is not about making a good idea. Or a pretty idea or a beautiful idea. It's about doing the idea that the thing needs, right? And if it's correct, it's going to look right. And if it's not, because sometimes the moment needs to look ugly, right? Like it's not about creating a series of pretty ideas.
Welcome, podcast listeners. We are extremely excited to welcome a lighting designer, our first lighting designer on the podcast. And who better than Pablo Santiago? Maureen and I have both collaborated with Pablo on several productions, including very recently at the Geffen Playhouse and Latino Theater Company. His work has been seen on stages throughout the country and internationally. Spending just a few minutes looking over your resume and credits is pretty illuminating. We definitely want to hear more about working on a Madonna video and the film set for Mulholland Drive, directed by David Lynch. Pablo has had a long-standing collaboration with theater artists such as José Luis Valenzuela, James Dara, and Patricia McGregor. Today, we are interested to discuss designing from the perspective of lighting.
I'm Maureen Weiss. I'm a performance designer.
I'm Sibyl Wickersheimer.
I am a set designer, and I had the pleasure of working with Sibyl on the book Scene Shift. This book is about conversations between theatrical designers, specifically scene design.
We have been really interested in continuing our conversations with set designers, discussing where they are now, where they want to go, and what they bring to the practice of set design. We want to continue that practice of talking to each other because it is such a solitary art form. This podcast grew out of that continued interest in conversation and the support of our creative producer, Taya Chura.
Please join us today.
Welcome, Pablo.
Well, it's an honor always to talk to you both and to be the first lighting designer. I mean, of all the people, all the people you could have chosen.
I think that, Sibyl and I have such curiosity around lighting design and your process. And I was like, and sometimes it's really difficult to get someone to explain their process. And I just felt like nobody could do it better than Pablo. I feel like you could sort of explain not only your pathway to lighting design, but just like how you approach a project. And I think we were sort of chatting about it before, but I am curious, what does happen when you get that set? For you, what happens when you see that? Because you must be reading the script the same as we are, but you don't know what we're going to land with when we enter that meeting.
I enjoy sort of being a part of the conversation early. It doesn't always happen because sometimes once you get into the process and the set is completed, it'd be like, oh, it would have been great to do this. It would have been great to do that, right? I think, like we were saying earlier, it's a puzzle. And I think a theater is a puzzle, right? And you have to figure it out. You have to figure out every theater is different, so you have to figure out the angles. You have to figure out what's available to you given the restrictions of everything, right? Like the lighting positions, inventory, and then the set as well, right? Like what kind of sidelight and backlight can you have access to? Is it lower? Is it from above? And so you sort of create like a catalog or a list of sort of the angles that you have available to you. And then you start to sort of figure out what can tell the story. I mean, I think usually before that, you already have read the script. Maybe you already had a meeting or two with the director and the team. So you have already a catalog of images, right? Like I'm a big believer in doing image research, right? Like mood boards, even just to get sort of thoughts coming out. Like it could be like you like an image, but it's like literally just one part of that image that is. It could be the color, it could be the direction of the light, it could even be how the set looks or how a person looks in the image. Once you start collecting a number of images, you start to sort of feel a resonance. If you see 30 images in front of you, you're like, oh, this is what I'm feeling about this, right? Like I know where lights can be, but I don't want to be like, all right, we're going to start with the high sides over here. The adventure is to sort of create something you haven't done or you try or how can you explore the theme of this play in a way that light can help tell the story. Once you sort of create this, then you sort of figure out, okay, how does this match with this set? And sometimes if you have the opportunity, it could be like, for example, there's been a lot of images, not just yours, but like from other people where, for example, people are floating, right? The ground is hardly ever lit, right? But then you see a set that has two walls on the sides, and you're like, well, is there any way that we can sneak light? Because the floating image of the actor seems to be very important, and right now we have no way of creating that. Or we say, well, forget that image. The set doesn't allow it. Let's create something else.
I'm glad you're speaking about like the images being the place that you can start to have the collaborative conversations. I don't always get imagery from a lighting designer, but it is helpful to sort of unlock where we are overlapping and where we're not.
Yeah, that's why I think, like collaboration early on is super important. There are certain theaters now, Denver Center, and actually for Roxy at the Geffen, first time, where we had like a week to do like a table read, but just with the designers.
So nice.
And you just like, you start just throwing things out, and so like then the idea comes from the group, right?
Right.
And by the end of 2 days or 3 days, you already did like 10 months of emails and rewrites and drafts, because you already threw out an idea, right? You already said like, this is not going to work, this is work, oh, this is better, oh, you're doing this, I'll do this. And you feel that kind of like kinetic energy once the direction feels correct, and everybody's ideas start sort of coming out, the swirl, and it's just, and I think that when projects are successful, that happens whether it's within a short period of time, like a workshop, or in tech, right? Like, or throughout, you feel like how everybody is responding, and then you start to feel, okay, this is going somewhere. When I don't hear from anybody, and we're all showing to tech, going like, well, what do you do? I have a feeling, sneaking suspicion that we're not going to be on the same page, and we're just going to spend tech time trying to figure out where the middle ground is, or where the common ground is, as opposed to doing the piece.
That's a very long way to get to the end. It's not a very efficient.
No, not at all.
It's interesting how even in some collaborations, when it's not together in person and you've been talking, then the designers are doing their presentation at first rehearsal, and I think, gosh, I really wish I would have seen that image earlier, or heard that expressed in a way, a design idea expressed in a way that maybe is more prepared for the presentation. And I think, okay, that's a really great idea. I wish I had heard that a few months ago, because by first rehearsal, often the set is already built.
I think it takes bravery early on to show it, because I think we all are doing the work, but we just don't know to share it. Like, there's something about us holding on to our stuff, maybe judgment. But I'm always like, I know that you've got something that's maybe not in agreement with this, but nobody's showing it to me, so I got to keep moving forward, I guess.
Yeah. Certain directors don't want to know about light. Like, you want to talk to them, and it's like, I don't know. I need to find out what the set is. Or like, oh, what do you think of this? I have no idea. I don't know what I don't know what the costumes are, so I can't tell you whether the light's right. For me, it's not even like, is it right? It's like, does this spark anything, right? Are we in the right world, more than I want this image replicated on stage?
That's good.
And sometimes I think it's also, in terms of bravery, maybe it's just it's a question of us reaching out with each other, as bypassing everybody else, and goes like, what do you got? What do you think? Like, it's like, are you as confused as I am? This play makes sense.
But you're approachable in that way, and I think Sibyl and I are always like trying to approach it. We're always like, how are we going to approach the lighting designer? Because sometimes it's like we don't know the right time. But with you, I feel like I can say it.
I heard a couple of the episodes that you guys have done, and it's like part of it is like, how do we talk to the lighting designer? I think part of it is we have a terrible reputation, and there is a few of us who are not very nice, or maybe a lot of us.
It's just such a different process. And so
Yeah,
because we're often not in the room together, which is why having a week workshop or an early meetings in person is so helpful, then at least you start a conversation. If you start a conversation in tech, then the lighting designer is usually stressed out because that's the work time that you get. And so on a dinner
Yeah.
break or
ever
on
shrinking.
after, yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
it's a challenging time to talk. And yet for set designers, the time during tech is often when we are the eyes of the group.
Yeah,
And so if we're doing our job correctly, we're really watching and listening and watching what's being created in real time. Often that could be experimental early in tech, but given that the lighting designer is trying things, right? And trying out, what does that mean timing wise? What does that mean together with the sound and the performance? And so as the eyes, we end up with a lot to say about what the group is making, and it's just hard to fit that conversation in.
yeah. It's hard to know where you are at, where I'm at, right? Like it could be that I'm done with the image, and it's really helpful to hear whether it's working, or it could be that I'm literally skipping half of it just to keep up with the schedule, and half of it is not lit yet, and I'm gonna do it in notes on my own when we don't have actors. So it's like, oh, what's going on with this? Like, I'm not there yet because like the thing is not like what you're seeing is not complete. Often, what you're trying to do when the actors are there is to make sure that the environment that they are touching is the stuff that is correct, or at least close to correct, because you're not going to get the actor in the morning, prior to rehearsal tomorrow. But it's much easier to deal with the walls or to deal with the back window or
By
whatever
yourself.
by yourself, right? That you and can experiment with the color, or you know, or maybe you figure out that nothing that you have works well, and it's going to be a work note tomorrow where you're adding a light to make that better, right? If you're on seemingly on schedule, then everybody's relaxed in the room, even though it might be the worst lighting going on, or that you have like so many notes to take care of. But if we're on schedule, then everybody thinks tech is going really well, right? The director is not as stressed, because if you're behind, then people start to get stressed, people start to get short. You start to get more micromanaging notes because you must not know what you're doing because you're behind, even though it might not be your fault. Why
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
behind? Could have been automation had a problem.
Yeah.
It could have been the actor was late and they didn't come to the set until half an hour late. It's unrelated, right? It's just like if you're behind schedule, is the stage manager going to get a talking to from, even though it's like, what am I supposed to do? They have 500 cues in this one page, like it's not. It's like this sort of perception, right? So for me, it's always kind of like, what is the schedule supposed to be? Let's stay on schedule. And if I need to skip a certain thing, like if I have like there's a sequence where it has very heavy effects. Effects take a long time to create sometimes, at least especially if they have to be to music. So if we haven't done it prior, sometimes I just say to the directors, like, I'm gonna do one cue here, but it's gonna be like five, and I'll show it to you next time. But I think we should just run it so we can stay on schedule. We just like if you say that, it's like the magic word. Oh yeah, 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 of course. Let's
Yeah,
stay on
yeah, yeah.
schedule,
Let's stay
right?
on schedule.
Let's stay on schedule, and then everybody, and then they know what they're seeing is not complete. But then you record it and you take a video, whatever, and then in the morning, looking at the video, you can sort of create the rest of it away from the group, and then you see it in the second time, and now it has 10 more cues, right? And it has the effects and all the things that you wanted. But if you take the time to create it in the moment, it could be detrimental to just the mood in the room, right? Like the actors lose concentration, then they're not like then you run it and they run it at a speed that they're not going to act it at, right? And you think, oh, this is going to take 2 seconds, but it's really going to take four. It's going to take one. Like the timing is all off because nobody's working at working rhythm because everybody is tired from waiting. And people are in a bad mood, and so they're like, "Why is this red here?" And it just. Whereas everybody is like more accepting of things if everybody feels that the process is going
They're on
well.
time. I think this is like that's a big light bulb for me, is the fact that the lighting designer is sort of the mood keeper of those tech days. Like that you take that on your shoulders, or at least have said it out loud, is like big for me to hear that, because we don't have that. We're trying to, make it so that our set doesn't make everybody angry the first time they walk into the space.
I was freaking out. Like, how
Yeah.
long have you been chasing this thing?
And we're just like, just wait for the lighting.
Yeah,
Even the directors that you've worked with so many times, they will still ask the question, regardless of who it is or what theater, or the question, is it going to look like that?
yeah,
Every single time. And so you have to you hear it and then just ignore it. But I think it is the first time I've heard a lighting designer say, I can kill the mood if I'm not keeping up in the room with where we need to be page wise or, on schedule. I mean, I didn't even think about it in that way, because what you said about bringing more detailed notes upon yourself, or that could be a result of taking more time to write cues if it means that it'll push us behind.
right. I mean, they always have like there's a moment where like, oh, this transition is not working, right? Or the automation is not working, or the quick change is taking too long. Now they're gonna go meet about how to make the quick change longer, or a half hour, or there's always these. And you make your list, and as long as you're disciplined about actually using that time, you can go back and fix things without. You always have time. As long as you're the sort of trusted that you will make it happen. The other thing that I actually learned from Daniel Nasi, who's now head of production or producer, right, at the Geffen. Right before I started grad school, I was asked to assist him, even though I had no idea what assisting was. So like I just literally sat next to him. That's what I more like shadowed him more than. And he was doing a play called A Room Next Door, I believe, and it's a realistic play, right? And so what he did is like he lit the whole room all the time, and then he started like sort of lighting the walls and whatever. And then I was like, "Is every cue gonna be lit the whole room?" And he's like, "No, I just don't know where they're gonna be." Right. And then he said like the director's only worried if they see the actors, so no matter where they go they're going to be seen, so the director's happy. And then later he goes back and goes like, well, they never went to the kitchen, let's take that off, they never went over here. Going that way sometimes is very efficient in the sense that you can run the whole scene and you never appear to have like a bad cue, right? Because the whole room was lit. And then you like sort of say, well, for this we're gonna get rid of this, and then you start to sort of carve out the space, and that could be done, like even in previews, you're like taking notes. So they only were in these zones, because the stage is mapped out by focus points. So they only use this area. So then, boom, 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 then without you can even do it in blind. Right, you can just look at numbers on the monitor and go like, okay, zone this could be at 20%, this at 20, this. You don't even have to look at the light on the stage because you already have a sense of what the intensity would do. And another way is also like start with one light, right? You just turn it on and then, okay, I'm ready. And then they go over there. It's like, all right, let me have the second light because they went, and then you just, as opposed to sort of thinking that you're going to create the whole image right away, or take that pressure away from yourself. That your first pass is going to be perfect. The only issue is that everybody's looking at us doing the
They want it.
passes,
Yeah, you feel like they're seeing all of the flaws.
all the flaws.
I love on your website that you include your artist statement. Even before I knew you, I read that artist statement and I was like, God, I love this because you put right out there a lot about lighting design, like the assumption that it's all about lighting the performer. That sentence you say sort of questions it. But we then went through your work because I think you can take that statement that you have, and for all of the podcast people, go look at it because it's really impressive. But then look at your work and you really understand what you mean. And so Sibyl and I, we loved Zoot Suit. I mean, the lighting for that, we have all of these images that we played with last night, just looking at in awe of how you found a way to sort of show the backlight, the front light, the floor. You used every surface to sort of tell the story of the light.
One of the images is with the central character, a female character that has a red behind them. You've isolated the performer of the moment, but then you have this flood of red light. And red light is so hard on stage because it kind of dominates, right? But it's so evocative to be able to see how much care is taken to balance the imagery out. And I noticed this when we were working on Mind Play. You're coming back a week later and not being in the room for a couple of the previews because the preview process was so long and arduous for the lighting designer, and I think for sound as well, because you're working with very small incremental changes throughout the whole piece, right, of timing. But you found that time very instructive and were able to stay with the piece, creating this, colorful balance, which I never thought about that play as being a colorful one, but you did find ways to put quite a bit of color in and not shy away from that, but to really balance the mood in the room incrementally. And I find that is true looking at all of your imagery, but especially for Zoot Suit, there's these iconic freeze frames within these photos that are almost like a graphic novel or something. They're so stylized, and yet you know exactly where to look.
You see how is that kind of like a rhombus, right, shape that Chris Sibyl created on the floor, and that was going to be like they were going to put lighting in the floor, and it was going to change color, and that got cut, and so I put light from above, right, trying to light the path. He is in prison at the time, and I was like, how do you and it's like this abstract set, so how do you
bars. Yeah.
So how do you create a prism? And so what I did was sort of create 4 sort of jetting out sort of shapes of bars that look like some sort of symbol, and he was in the center of it, and that was my prison.
So good. It's so
like
good.
It's like there is no actual like prison or walls or anything. It was just this sort of shape. I did Sweeney Todd also in Omaha, and there is that one moment where the stepfather is looking at the young lady through the keyhole, right, and masturbating, right, like in the movie, like it's kind of sort of like passed over, right? Like it's kind of decayed out, and then like you see the show, it's like you read it, like, oh no, this is like really what's happening. And then like after, when he's sort of feeling guilty, he starts sort of beating himself up while looking at her in the room, right? And this was like a very sort of stylized set, which was just these modular platforms. So it was like, oh, how do I do this? So what I did was just like make like a color field, which was a shade of blue, and then in yellow created a giant keyhole that was the size of this, and she was in this center of the sort of circle at the top, and he was at the very downstage edge, staring at this giant keyhole on the floor and she in it. And I was like, okay, this is my this is my room.
As set designers, nothing makes us happier than the moment that you can solve it for the building that we don't need.
Well, it's very freeing when you don't have to be everything, where the set doesn't have to do everything, right?
No, I'm actually I'm a huge fan of unit sets that then we get to transform and like and then I just did Shane at OSF and Lex Leung, who's he's the set designer, and he and is a western on stage. And the set is just like a barn kind of, and it has this back wall that has slats, right? But is covered with scrim, and the scrim is painted as a sky, right? So when we front light the back wall, it's like a sky, but then when we backlight it is the bar, and there's like, and it has sort of the space, becomes wood, right? And then there's these ramps that also could be in the barn, or when they're further downstage, we light them in green and stuff, and you can feel that that's the hills, right? Like, it's how do you sort of transform the space into something that perhaps it was not meant to be, right? And that's like sort of creating more sort of realistic sort of world. At the center for me is what's important is the emotional arc of the piece, and how do we sort of create spaces, whether it's through set and light or set and light and sound or wherever, or video. How do we create this space, but also imbue it with the emotional content of this moment, right? Because I think if we just go for realism by itself, we're always going to fail because TV and movies will do a better job. So, like, what's strong about theater is that we have the possibility to be more emotional and abstract, or a certain level of abstraction, sometimes a lot or sometimes a little, but that we create an image that sparks imagination, and that's like that completes the world, because it, no matter what, is going to be a fragment of what it was meant to be, right? Whereas in the movie, like, oh, you want a street, you can literally have a street,
Find a
right?
street. Yeah.
But here is going to
It's worn
be some sort of corner of the stage, and so how does that corner create a street, or how does it sadness, or how is anger, or how is I mean, the piece that you guys saw for Lost Paradise, there was like all these dream sequences that we needed to sort of, how do we represent a nightmare slash dream sequence that represents what it means to be a black queer woman being repressed in this country. It's like a huge ask, right? Like,
Yeah, it was.
and so it took many drafts, right? And we got to where we got to.
Yeah, that was a very interesting show. And it did ask a lot of the lighting in a lot of ways, like to complete a lot of the emotion more than anything else. So it was really nice to see it sort of in that part, because we saw it like on a preview,
Right.
just to see how it came together. I'm curious because you've referenced film now, so
Yeah.
you were pretty central in film for a while, thinking you were going to go that direction, and so
Yeah.
then here you are.
Yeah, I studied cinematography. Well, I studied film at UCSD, and there it's more of an experimental program, and it's more like the idea of the auteur. So you do everything. Pretty early on, I was told by the professors that I was never going to make director, but that I was pretty good with the camera. And this is back in the days where there was no video; it was all film cameras, and we were using black and white reversal, which is a type of film that comes out positive, so there is no negative. So to make it cheaper, but it also, the exposure has to be dead on. If you're slightly overexposed or slightly underexposed, you either see white or black. So it has to be dead on for it to work. So everybody's super scared to shoot and to meter and all that into light. And I was got kind of comfortable with the idea of shooting. So then the professor said, I think you should go into cinematography. I think this is the thing that you have more talent for. So I shot quite a few films in school, and once I finished, I said, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. I'm going to become a cinematographer. I'm going to make huge movies and all all those things. And then when I got here, well, it's not so easy to get a job doing the thing you want to do. And so I needed to work crew to support myself, and I was doing some camera assisting, but I was also like, sort of, how do I use this to better myself, right? And the thing that I felt that I was the weakest at of the responsibilities of cinematography was lighting. So I decided to crew in lighting as a way to sort of better my education. And I did 15 years of it, working in all kinds of films and all kinds of sizes, commercials, TV, music videos, was in the union, did over 30,000 hours of union hours. And so, like, I became pretty good at lighting for film, right? Like, I learned the language, I learned the tools, how it worked, and then all the while trying to shoot. And I did some shooting. I shot like slasher horror films for Cinemax and things like that. But at the same time, I just felt like somehow the universe saying no to this. And in the meantime, I started to do lighting for dance. My ex-wife was a choreographer, and she needed a lighting designer. And I was like, I don't know anything about theatrical lighting design. And she's like, well, you're the right price. You're free. So you're just going to do it. And so I started lighting her work, and then other people asked, and then other people asked. And then I was asked to do like musicals for schools, for middle schools, for high schools. So like in between films, I would do like some gigs, and it just seemed to just sort of evolve on its own. I wasn't trying. I wasn't calling anybody. And then a good friend of mine, Manolito Biag, who's just like choreographer in the Bay Area, asked me to do a piece with him, and I did all these sort of film techniques, and like I was just sort of trying things, and it was successful. And he was like, you should try being a theatrical lighting designer. I think this is what you should do. And I did it some more, and I, did both for maybe 3 or 4 years longer. But like that started sort of this sort of thinking that maybe. And then in 2007, I think it was like it was either like writers and directors, or directors and writers. There was like a double sort of strike, and it was a long period of time of not working. And so I felt like I can't depend, like I can't be dependent on somebody else's sort of, not that I'm against them sort of fighting for their rights, but then when it's over, it's not like everybody life gets better. It's like the director's life gets better, or the actor's life, or whatever. Like it wasn't about our sort of rights. It was not about everyone, but everybody got affected by it. And I started to see sort of the runaway sort of production, and how and I was only union here, and it just felt like, I need to figure something else out, right? And then I did a couple other projects that were very successful on stage, and I really started to really fall in love with the idea of abstraction and being able to use the saturated color, which is very difficult to get away with in film, where you're like very tied to realism, even though you have a certain flexibility. I mean, one of the things that you do have a lot of flexibility is with darkness, because the focus plane will tell the audience where to look, even though somebody might be silhouetted, right? On stage it's a little harder that way. But color is a thing that you can really play with, and abstraction, and like direction of light, and a single light can tell the story. You don't need to light the whole stage, and so that seemed like a Pandora's box for me, and so I said, I think I'm gonna do it, which was not an easy decision. I was 37 with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old kids, and say, okay, I'm gonna go back to grad school, which I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was getting into. Once I was in grad school, I was like, oh my god, this is so much harder than I ever imagined. So and it was I was like, okay, it has to be nearby. So I applied to UCLA, UCSD, and Cal Arts. I got an interview in '03, and I got in at UCLA. And it had to be nearby. I had to get a full ride. I had to, like, there were like all these conditions for myself, right? And if I didn't get those, I wasn't going to do it because I couldn't afford it. It was already going to be a struggle to keep up with the
Right.
family, right?
For sure.
And all the things happened. Neil said, "Yeah, we'll give you the money. We'll give you, everything." And then he insisted that I keep using film techniques. He's like, "This is what you know, and this is what's going to separate you. So like, don't start like just doing theater. Like, figure out how you can use both." And there I met Jose Luis. I met James there. I was the director in the program, and so, and then Hannah Kim was there, who's now a
Tony.
Tony winner, video designer. Um, Ian, Francois, like, there was like, it was like a really great generation of
Yeah.
people. We came out and we all started working, and it just sort of took off, right? Like, I mean, for my age, I guess I am where probably I should be, or maybe slightly behind, maybe. I don't know, depending on where you want to be, what you consider success. But saying that I'm now 12 years out of school is very fast, except for like maybe Hannah and people like that. But like most people who are 10 years out are not yet doing the things that we're doing.
I graduated from that program, and 10 years after I graduated, I was not doing the work that you're doing. You come at it from the age that you are going into graduate school. It's just a
Yeah.
different, it's a different path. You're coming at it with having the background of maturity and experience in other art forms. You're partnering that with this new art form, and and this new education. So it's not the same.
It's not the same, but at the same time, there's a certain amount of luck. A lot of it is who you work with, right? Like, you can do the same amount of work, and you can imbue with all the experience you have, right? But if you're working with a company or a director or like a budget that is like this, like there's very little future to that idea, even though it's a really solid idea, right? You do the same thing, but maybe you have a little bit more money, so you can expand the idea a little more. Or the director all of a sudden is directing this huge thing that then they say, oh, Sibyl, like, Maureen, come with me, you know, um, like I did Destiny of Desire, which we did it all over. But the first time it was at Arena, and it was Karen Zacaria's piece, and Jose Luis directed it, and they were like, "No, we want you to hire Kevin Adams, right?" Which, like, he had just won Tonys, and I mean, he's like, world class, right? And so they didn't want to hire me, and Jose Luis was like, "They want me to hire this guy Kevin Adams." I was like, I don't know. So I would go with Kevin Adams, like, he's great. He's like, I don't know him, like, he's not my guy. And he said to Molly, he said, like, if you don't hire Pablo, I'm not doing the piece. I mean, like, how often does that happen, right? Like, and so
Never.
I go and do a regional, like, 2 years out of school, which never happened. Looking back, I didn't have the experience to do the show, like, at least the first version. It was a
Yeah.
huge learning experience, and I learned a lot. And then when we did it again, the group and I was much more prepared, right? And that was very successful. And everybody could, in the theater was like, "What's this guy doing here?" Because I didn't know I mean, I didn't know what it meant to be at a place. And James did the same. He was like, "Oh, this is the guy who's gonna light my piece," and that was that, right? And other people have done that. I did Suit because Diana
Diane Rodriguez.
Diane
Yes.
Rodriguez. She was a very huge advocate, but she told Michael Ritchie, right? Like, so you can't have Suit and not be lit by a Mexican. You know, like it needs to be somebody of Mexican descent or like Chicano to do it, right? And at the time, there was very little, still like very little sort of thought of that. Like now, there's more of like, oh, maybe people of the culture should do the thing. That's why I did Suit.
She was amazing.
Yeah,
Tanya in Scene Shift speaks about her in the book as a mentor and a way to see herself in the world as a woman and as a Latina designer. And, it just was really impactful that moment to hear her speak about Diane. And I had the same experience just as a woman watching her function at CTG. So.
no, I mean,
So it comes around,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you don't do it alone.
No, but
No.
having these people that are advocates, right, it's pretty amazing, and it is the luck that you speak about. I mean, Luis Alfaro and Chris Acebo matched me with Shauna Cooper.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they called. I got a phone call from Chris Acebo out of the blue. My first year teaching at USC, Luis had just seen Eclipsed at the Kirk Douglas. I didn't know him. I didn't know that he had seen the piece. He told Chris Acebo to call me. Chris Acebo matched Shauna and I together, and we went on sort of a blind date lunch. And because she was living in Los Angeles for 6 months or something, and we just happened to be able to get together right before The Unfortunates, which was the first show that I did at OSF. And I just remember when Chris called me, I just had a moment going, Chris Acebo just called me,
Yeah.
and then I ran into Luis on campus, and he said, "Oh yeah, I just told Chris to call you," and I thought the world just did something. It just whatever the luck was 20 years after going to school, like it finally found me. It was
Yeah.
really amazing.
I think we all get those in one way or another. And I mean, I've been lucky to do a bunch of different things, but I also have been turned down in a bunch of different things, right?
Yeah.
And and every year there's things that I don't get, right? And but then like they have been moments where I realize later, oh, good thing I didn't get that gig. I would have totally messed it up, and then I don't know if like I would have like sort of burned a bunch of bridges in that world. So like it's better that if it happens some other time.
Yeah.
So now I'm more like the job that I have gotten this year. I'm more like, oh, there's a reason why I didn't get it.
Yeah.
As opposed to just beat myself up for not getting it.
There's two things I'm curious about with lighting. One of them is if the lighting is wrong, how often do people really know that it's the lighting? I feel like it's much easier to be the one that's like that wall that was built was really fucked up.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure like how often are people like, because I know when when it's beautiful we do see it, but I don't think we often know it's bad.
Yeah.
And by bad I mean just like getting in the way of the story in some way.
Yeah. A certain flatness or the color's not right, so it feels too white. Or
how would a director say to you or anybody that you screwed it up?
Yeah. Well, people do say it. It's like, it doesn't work.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like
Like,
what's the
yeah.
feedback you get?
Well, it depends, right? I mean, I I work with directors who would like spend an hour trying to figure out the pre-show look, and it's like, can we just move on and figure this out later? And others that like someone like Jose Luis, he'll by the third day of tech, you're like, I like this cue, which means this is the show. Before that, like, you won't say anything. He just will like let you try to figure it out, right? And then people will like, you'll see the run through and it's like, I don't think this one scene is working. I don't know. Try something else,
Hmm.
or I'm thinking
Hmm.
that this should feel
Hmm.
more this way, or
Okay.
like I think people know when it's wrong. Like, it's not doesn't feel right. Like, the hard part is like is how do you fix it, right? Like, how do you, with what you have, right? Like the tools you have, like the decisions that were already made in terms of creating the plot that is there. How do you fix it then?
For me, we have our own like things that we're asked to, change or aren't working. I just feel like it's much easier to criticize a wall that's been built than sort of like something that has like a surreal quality, like lighting. And so I'm like, how do you receive feedback?
Usually it's like it's not working. One of the more comments is like, oh, I want to see this performer more,
Right,
right?
right.
Like,
Hmm.
just illumination of an actor.
And what helps you? Let's say we were to like tiptoe over to you. Is there a way, like the best way?
Yeah, the
Hmm.
best way is like, I, it's like, oh, maybe this moment is more sad. you know, you know,
Oh, that's good. Thank
it's
you.
like, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. I think, or like even something that like I think it's later in the afternoon.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm. Okay,
or
okay.
it's a little too bright, or it's like the
Mm-hmm.
contrast is off. Like something
Mm-hmm.
very
Okay.
simple.
Well, I think the worst moments for me are when I hear somebody describing the light specifically to the lighting designer, saying, because we're teachers, I often hear this in a school setting where the director will pick up on their system numbers or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
and
Turn
say,
light
I need
off,
less.
channel two.
Yeah, turn that light off, turn that, rather than say what you're describing, which is describe what you're looking for in the scene in terms of, again, emotional content. And you speak about that well, and speak about the story that we're telling rather than the actual instrumentation.
Right. When somebody says like, "How bright is that? 30. Can we make it 40?" I was like, "All right. Here's the headset. You can finish. You don't need me. You can speak directly to the person touching 40." And it's not like an insult, but it's just like, at this point I'm not needed. Like
Right.
I
It's not a
rather
numbers game.
it's not like, and yeah, and like, and that might be all it needed, but often is not that. That's a band-aid, right? Like, oh, okay, that feels better. The thing I say sometimes, kind of like a joke, but not a joke at the same time. Better doesn't necessarily mean good, right? Like, it just because it's less worse, less bad, doesn't mean that this is the right answer. It just means that it doesn't feel as horrible. So, like, it might be that just turning a light off or on, it just makes the moment feel better, but it's still not the. It might not be the right answer, but because we haven't really communicated with each other what it is that we're after, and I think if you tell me, I think this moment needs to feel more sad, and then I try a version, right, and you're like, oh, okay, that's better, but I might try a third and a fourth or a fifth version because I know what it means, and it's still like, to me, it still doesn't feel sad, right? And then, like, I will continue to investigate the moment to get the right emotion because I know now what it's meant to do, as
Hmm.
opposed to
Yeah.
like, that's the light that was offending everybody, right? And then what will happen invariably is that you'll be like, oh, something's wrong, and then like you'll turn a light off, right? And it's like this one side of the actor is completely dark, and like, oh, that looks good, and then you go with it, and then like 2 days later, like, why is that person dark, right? And it was like, well, that was your decision 2 days ago. Like, you totally forgot because you were trying to fix it, and then like now I'm being accused for your decision, but I didn't change it because the answer was like a short answer, right? Like that light needs to be off. And it's like, okay, so there's nowhere to go from there because that is the fix, right? Supposedly, as opposed to like there's an emotion or there is a time of day or whatever that leaves a more open-ended answer that I can continue working on, as opposed to like what we needed was to turn that light off. Well, we did. There is no version 2 because like we did this fix, you know, as
We turned the
opposed to
light
like,
off
oh,
and on.
it's like somebody going to you and go like, okay, put a little more aging in this corner, right? And then it's like, and then you do that, and then like, well, you don't do anything else because like that was the end, as opposed to going like, I just needed to feel more worn out, right? And then you like that can mean 15 things to you, right? As a set designer, and you can continue to sort of work in areas that nobody else is really paying attention to, but will feel in the moment.
As an artist, as you've clearly are developing an artistry and need to be given that space to work. And I wonder, as you've been creating that artist within yourself, and clearly in film, you also had that vision, right? That you were working towards something that's bigger than maybe you knew when you entered, the film industry as working in lighting. I think the question that I have, I suppose, is where do you see yourself growing the most, and what do you hope to get towards? And Maureen and I have been contemplating this theme of moral ambition and ambition over our careers, and wondering what that means. And especially now that I feel that I want to define for myself, like, where do I want to go from here, and where do I want to put myself? What do I hope for our industry, for set design,
Yeah.
but also for theater? What do we hope to move to? And I know it's a big question. That's something that it takes a little longer to unpack, but do you have feelings about where you want to go?
I think, like everybody wants to do, I think anyway, like you want to do like a show, you want to continue to work on things that are successful artistically and hopefully commercially too, and continue to experiment. I think for me, growing is more like, can I really nail it, right? Like, because I think what ends up happening often is we just run out of time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, for
like
sure.
this is as far as we got.
Uh-huh.
Do I feel like this is like the right answer at this moment? Not really, but like this it works. It tells the story, but it doesn't feel like. I mean, I think we all know those moments, right? Where you see something and you're like, oh my god, right? Like in that in and you want those moments more and more, right? Like that's the addictive part, right? Where you can find that moment where you feel that the world, your thoughts, your emotions, your worldview, like depends on what the piece about, but there is something within you that gets transformed. You just saw something that it just flips something in you, and that sensation is very special, right? Whether you see it on somebody else's work or your own, right? Like just going to the theater. You're going to the theater to find that moment, right? And then there are, these artists that are more likely to do it, and that's why you go and you're like, oh my God, like this was so beautiful. This made me cry. It's like this, you know, the way this person delivered this line or whatever. I think that's what I want. I want to be able to do that, like, and it's less related to. I mean, yeah, I want to make a living and I want to have a continuous career, all those things, because we gotta live, we gotta eat, and all those things. But in terms of like, once you take that out, the logistical part of life, that's more important to me than whether I ever do something on Broadway or wherever, do something or whatever theater or whatever. Like that is not anymore an ambition. Like the ambition is like, it doesn't matter where it is, can we create that thing? Not to toot my horn, but like when we, I did Quixote Nuevo and Shane this season at OSF, and they're both doing well and it's successful, and I'm very glad for the shows and for everybody involved. At the opening of Shane, there was this younger lady who's like, I'm part of the literary department here, and he's like, you made me think about light for the first time in my life, and I was like, that, like I don't care what happened on stage. It could have been like a disaster of an opening. This question means more to me, than anything else. This is more rewarding than anything else. That somebody would say that.
That the success is actually in each production, sort of the way you were speaking about it, and that is, I think, at the core of what I also feel about it. But I've always wanted to say that when I watched you work, I love this book, and it's called Big Magic. I don't know if you've read it, and it's by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's the whole thing is about how we have ideas, and I make my students read it, but it's about how ideas just drop in.
Yeah.
And once they drop in, we have the choice to follow that idea. And just because we were given it, it's like a gift. The idea is the gift. And so I always think of theater as it's the gift I was given. Like when somebody drops a play in, it's just that thing. And I get to then follow that. But when I watch you work, it actually embodies. I can see her book going through you as you're like looking at the stage, the ideas are dropping in you. And I'm like, oh my God, he's painting it right now. I see that idea. And it's very much like what she describes as allowing an idea to just kind of flow through you and out of you. And then it comes back to the audience.
I think there's something to that. And it's not, I think there's a two-part question or answer. The first, like the quick one is you can't get attached to the idea, right? Like, because it's one answer. So when somebody says, "Oh, I hate this cue," right, or
Right.
one way or another, or we're really not going to do the scene this way anymore. We're going to do it this other way, and destroys these three cues that you were really liking. Is that ideas are a dime a dozen. You just have to believe it. You just have to have
Yes.
faith that you have another idea in you, even if you don't know what that is. Because if you get attached to it, not only like the piece doesn't evolve or you don't evolve, but also I find that that one favorite idea in my first pass of the play, if I just like, oh, this is locked, right? By the end of the piece, that's the weakest part of the play
I know. I
because
hate
it's the only one that didn't have a revision. Because I got and fell in love with the idea, and it's like you can't fall in love with the idea. It's just an idea, and you just have to believe there is more. And the other is this idea of the conduit is like it's not about making a good idea. Or a pretty idea or a beautiful idea. It's about doing the idea that the thing needs, right? And if it's correct, it's going to look right. And if it's not, because sometimes the moment needs to look ugly, right? Like it's not about creating a series of pretty ideas.
Could that lead us to David Lynch?
Yeah, I can. I'll do it I'll do it through Jose Luis first.
Through ugly ideas.
The first time I worked with him, like he did like what he normally does, doesn't say anything to me for a while, and then he comes and he's like, "Oh, this is very pretty," and I was like, "Oh, thank you," and he's like, "It's not a compliment," and I was like, "Okay." He's like, "If lighting is pretty, like everything that looks pretty is boring." He says, "It has to have tension. If there is no tension in the light, nobody pays attention to the stage." And then he walked away. And that was it. Like, I was like, oh, okay. So what do I do with that? What's the note?
What's the note?
Get a new career, But like taking that with me, right? So it's like it's okay for it to be ugly because it's about creating the right amount of tension, right? And not to sort of be like, oh, this is me on stage, and this is like a representation of me. Like, there's nothing to do with you. It's like you sort of. It really doesn't. Like, it's you trying to manifesting that this piece wants to be, so the experience is correct for the audience, right? It might be what you would have done or not in a way. Like, it's almost like you have to get out of your own way. I don't know how to explain it. Like, sometimes your own judgment is like the thing
Yeah,
that
I agree.
that
Yeah.
is stopping the thing from happening. And in terms of going through David Lynch, I did work with him on Mulholland Drive, and this is like early in my career. It was a huge learning experience for me because I already admired him and I already thought he was amazing in the sense that he was like a singular voice, right? Like, he was like a David Bowie or like, these people who find a way to express, or like Robert Wilson, like, there's like, this is a new language, like they figured out something, they're tapping into something else. He goes for the ugly. Like, he would say, like, normally, like when you're exposing a shot, right? There's like middle gray, which is normally where the exposure is, and then there's things that are darker and things that are brighter, right? And you go a certain amount of f-stops in order to get to white and to get to black. But at the time, you could, like, the type of film we were using, you could say like 4 stops below is black, but the thing could be 7 or 8 stops below. So if you have to light it to get to 4 stops, so it'll be black, right? Because if you don't, then it just looks murky and it's like all this grainy. It just means it's like there is no information for the film to even understand what's happening. It's too far below black, right? But he loved that. He was like, no, no, no. I like the
Yeah.
murkiness because when it's
Yeah.
murky, you think somebody might be there. It's like embracing the sort of the quote unquote the mistake. Like, there is no mistakes. It's just what you're doing with it. And he, like, he was always like, no, 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 let it be murky. Let it be, don't,
Let it be
don't,
murky.
don't be pretty. Like, it's like he was more like evocative. He would say like there was one moment that was a very surreal, and he's like, we have smoke, we have lightning, we have noise, and if it's out of focus, we're in the money. It was like, these jokes that he would say. He was always in
Yeah, I
search
mean,
of
I
this
teach him for
feeling.
lighting
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
you can really look at his films and he makes the lights objects in
yeah.
a very clear metaphoric way that's important for students to just quickly see the importance of, like that person that came to you and said, I thought about light for the first time.
He's using his tools. I mean, he's experimenting and he knows what he likes and where he's going with it, but he knows the tools
How
enough
not to use
to
it.
express that it's okay to use them the way that's maybe atypical, right? In
Yeah.
order to achieve a result that is desired. And I think that's when I see technical work that also merges concept in a way where it's excellent, right? It's achieving a mood, a story, and a perspective. The two together, to me, that means that equals great art, right? So for me, it's about technique meets concept in a way where it's very precise to get to that, even if it's experimental.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, correct. Another story. Harris Avides was a cinematographer who has since passed away, and he was quite brilliant. And he worked with Gus Van Sant and David
Yeah.
Fincher, and
Yeah, he's good.
he was amazing. And he passed away. But like he was my mentor for a while when I was really trying to be a cinematographer, and he told me, he says, I don't like actors. I like environments that characters inhabit. And I was like, oh, that's amazing, right? And I told this quote to James James Dara, right? When he's an opera director, and he doesn't like front light. Like he sees a light on in front of the house, like he's like, turn it off. I don't want it. It's all sidelight and backlight. It's okay if there's darkness. It's okay. Like this is, this is the world. This is how people are. Like no follow spots. No, and much more experimental. And he would always say, like, for light, it's like, just make it weird, and what
That's a
that
great
meant,
note.
what that meant is like, just it has to like be off, right, and asymmetrical in some way. And then we would just have one cue, and then he would tell the singer, he would like, if you're here, you're lit this way, and if you're here, then we're only going to see half your face, and if you go over here, you're going to see. So you decide when you want to be lit. Like, and there's like 5 cues
You get the
within the
choice, yeah.
cue, because it always needs to be lit asymmetrically. So like, we're not cueing; it's just the environment. And then he gives the singer the freedom to sort of roam, and with the knowledge of what the light is doing to them, right? And it's like, and I think in this moment you want to be over here, you're going to be really green and really odd looking, but I like that green, so don't worry about it. It's going to. That was a very different learning experience. In one time we did a Peleus in Cincinnati, and there's a moment where Peleus is saying that he can't see Melly's song, right? Like, I can't see you right there in the forest. And we always, like, I've done it since, and you kind of like them, and you can see them. But and James was like, why can't I see her? And I was like, well, it's so and so. It's a famous singer. She's about to sing, and it's like, but yeah, but Peleus saying that he can't see her. Why? Turn it off. Like, I don't want to see her. Like, because he can't see her. And I was like, but she's on stage. Like, we were gonna get fired. And he's like, don't worry about it. Yeah, I'll talk to them. If they say something, it's my fault. And then in the darkness, or she starts singing, right? And then they have this duet, kind of. It's mostly her. And then at the end, they confess their love at the end of this duet. So we're doing the piece, right? And I didn't realize that he had given the note to take forever to come out of that. So she's singing almost the entire aria in darkness, and you just see him, right? But like, she filled the whole theater, and like, it was just like this moment that you're like, and you heard people, like, just like, 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 he's just this, because he was this glorious singer, right? And then right at the moment where he said, I love you, she went into the light.
Oh,
And you could
nice.
feel like the whole theater go,
Me too, right
and
now.
then James was like, see, it works. But we've never been asked back, so maybe.
I mean, that's sort of the story of theater.
I mean, like, you could do things that, that's the other thing, right? You can do things that are the technique, and as you say, Sibyl, but like, it doesn't mean that everybody involved is with you.
Oh, I'm so aware of that. Yes.
This will be some people that are like, what in the hell are you doing?
But I think you've just hit on your ambition for what light can do through those stories. It's finding those moments is like pure joy, right?
Yeah, those are the
And
joy moments.
trusting
Your
yourself, and
collaborators.
trusting collaborators, right? And sometimes, and best idea wins. Sometimes the set designer, sometimes the costume. Like, oh, that's a way to, yeah, this can work that way.
Trusting darkness and trusting that ugly can be exactly
That,
what something
that is a
needs is.
storytelling too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always about, a follow spot with beautiful backlight. Like, and yeah, and I think there is the sort of American theater versus other types of theater, right? Like,
Yes, that
or
there's.
like the story, and like, in the States there is this idea, I think, I may be wrong, but I think there's this idea that the word and the face of the actor tell the whole story. And I think in other places, or like I come from Mexico, right? And in Europe, certainly, is the image, is the totality of the stage tells the story. And the actor is just part of it. And sometimes the actor in silhouette is what tells the story, right? As opposed to the actor being the center always in the face. And I think that comes from film and television too. The actor, the close up is what will tell the story always. And everything else is just window dressing. So you'll believe this face. And one is too much pressure, I think, on the actor, but second is like is not true.
Right. It doesn't have to be true. We can try it another way.
There are a number of very, very good, strong lighting designers out there. And I feel like we both wanted to talk with you because we feel comfortable with you in the room being artists and just trusting that you come in with a confidence that you're not worried about talking about light.
This idea that lighting design, you have to like tiptoe around. I think there's like, to me, it feels like that's an insecurity from them, right? Or from our
Well,
position.
from us too.
No, but that you don't want to even hear it, right? Like the fact that you speak something is so detrimental to the work that I don't even want to hear you say it, as opposed to like, oh yeah, maybe a good idea, or like, no, I don't think that that's right. It's not going to work. You can say that too, like, oh, thank you for telling me. I don't think that that's the way it should go, right? Or you could like, oh, you have something, or it could be that you saying, I have this thing on stage, right? And let's say this is a complete idea already, and you said something that it says like, I don't think it's working, and then it can be like, okay, and then we go away, and then I come back with a hybrid, right? Like it affected me in some way to try to
Something
make a
landed.
change,
Right.
and something
Yeah.
landed,
Mhm.
and it made something that is not either one of our ideas.
Yeah, that's a nice moment.
To end this on a ambitious note, I think we all should be advocating for those early design meetings with everybody in
love
the
that
room
week.
with extended time. And I think that is a constant that I'm hearing from quite a few people because our time gets cut so short. So that's
Getting
my
smaller.
ambition for the day.
Well, time in the theater is getting shorter. The ambitions of the show is getting bigger. Money is less. And so the only way to nail it is to really have a very strong idea going in. And the only way to do it, because technically they want to be so much more complex. The only way it works is if we're all on the same page. And the only way to do that is to talk about it. And to just be open. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand the screaming or the this and the that. Like, it's never positive. It never lands. At the end, we're just doing theater.
It's just
It's just theater.
that's the
We're not
ambition.
trying to solve wars. We're not
Sometimes.
doing surgery. So, like, relax. just just lighting theater.
I think it's so funny because we have been wanting to talk lighting for so long, Pablo. Like, I think Sibyl and I are like, say more. Let me see. And luckily, we're recording this. So we actually know we've learned, we actually gave ourselves a lesson today. And so I'm just like, I'm so excited that I learned so much today. I feel like my brain is reset for how to enter a room in a collaboration. And that's really what I needed right now. So thank you.
I'm looking forward to the next time that we get to collaborate.
Thank you for
Anytime.
illuminating us.
Oh, thank you.